Hey guys! Welcome back to the last part of our custom boss fight tutorial video. And today, we'll be actually getting ready to destroy Jonny, add extra abilities after each phase, and just do some final cleanup. So get ready! So, you guys remember Jonny and all our abilities we set up right here. We've got Jonny right here, and we've got our 4 abilities. A dance to stop the damage zone, zombies, terrain getting destroyed, and finally our teleporter with a moving zone. And now we're going to get ready to destroy Jonny in a phase-based system. The first thing we'll do is make sure our destroying system destroys every piece we want, but nothing more. And for that reason we're starting with this, because later we'll be putting a lot more devices and indicators around it, and it might become really hard to move your explosive device at that point. So better to have it ready first. So grab an explosive device from the creative inventory and throw it down. Let's configure it. First of all, up the structure damage. As some props might have more or less HP, now set the damage in destructible buildings to yes, very important. Now set the health to indestructible and the blast radius to 1. Depending how big your boss is and how much you want to destroy, you might have to tweak this later, but you'll have to experiment with this and we'll see later. Now scroll down a bit and remove the audio and effects. Set the visibility in-game to off and the collision to off as well, so that no matter where it's placed, even when invisible, it shouldn't get hit or stopped by a stray bullet. Okay. Now finally, scroll all the way to the bottom and set the explode when receiving from to channel 18. Why channel 18? Well, in last video we used up all our channels up until 17. If you're doubting, remember you can always fly back down to remember what channels you're using and which ones are free. Now in this example we're going to set 4 phases. One for the left arm, one for the right arm, one for the bottom part legs kind of things, and then one for the head. But you can adapt this to your own boss as you want. You can implement more or less phases. So, since I'm having 4 phases here, I'm going to copy over the explosive device 3 more times. And on each one of them, I'm going to up the explode when receiving from channel. So 19 for the second one, 20 for the third one, and 21 for the last one. Then grab your first barrel and place it right in front or right behind the first hand. As close as possible, but without putting it actually inside, because it might make it difficult to move or fine-tune it otherwise. Then grab the next one and paste it on the other hand, the third one on the bottom part, and the last one on the head. Now throw down a button at our spawn, that when interacted transmits onto channel 18, and then copy it 3 more times right next to it, and up the channel every time as well. Why? Because now we can start the game and press each button one by one to see if the correct props get destroyed and nothing more. We don't want when phase 1 ends, which is supposed to be the hands, that the legs already explode as well. So press the first button and you can see that the arm explodes. Perfect, well almost, we'll fine tune this. Next one, good as well. Bottom part as well. And now for the head, awesome. If too many props get destroyed or too little, then play around with the structure damage, positioning and the blast radius until you get it perfect. And I wouldn't continue until you got this exactly right. Okay, back to editing mode. Once all your explosive devices are set correctly, then delete your buttons again. This was only for testing and positioning. Good, now let's continue. Next up is damaging the boss. Throw somewhere outside the objective device gallery. Delete everything except for the cylinder and bring it up to your boss. First of all, set the visibility during game to off and set the display damage numbers to on so that we know when we're damaging the boss, but can't see the actual device. Then scroll all the way down and set the when destroyed transmit on to channel 18, which is our first explosive device. So when we destroy this objective device, it will trigger and explode the explosive device that will actually destroy the props. Now the reason I didn't touch the health yet is because first we want to test the positioning and make sure that it's completely covering the objective that we want to destroy, in this case the hand. So copy it and paste it on the left arm, and then resize and rotate it until it completely covers what we want to destroy. Once it's fully covered but not oversized, then grab another copy of the objective device, up the when destroyed transmit on to channel 19 and paste it over the other arm. Same process on channel 20 for the bottom part, and same again for the head with channel 21. Now grab a weapon, drop it and start the game. Pick up your weapon again And now shoot each part until it's destroyed to see if everything works. If it does, then we can continue. If not, then you might need to do some fine-tuning with the positioning or check your channels. Good, next up, let's add some indicators. You can use particle effects to make it even more clear and show that he's enraging more, like I did with Sunny, as you can see. But for demo purpose, we're going to be using HUD devices. So throw one down at your mechanic system. And let's say phase 2 starting. Time from round start to off, and the placement to top center. Then we'll show this message after phase 1 is completed, which means channel 18. Now copy it over again and set the channel 19 message, phase 3 starting. Again for channel 20 and say final phase. And again for channel 21 saying GG or something like that. Now it looks like we're almost done, but there are actually 4 more things that we need to do. Or better said, can do. The first one is setting up extra abilities after each phase. The next one is making sure you can't destroy the head before destroying everything else, or the legs before the arms. And once that's done, we need to add some indicators to show where to shoot first. And then lastly, we'll actually have to do some cleanup for our spawn as well. But first, the extra abilities. Fly back down to where we previously built our mechanics and throw down 4 new sequencer, 1 for each phase. And configure them as followed. Looping to infinite, and the tempo will lower this to only 4 BPM. Why? Because if the length is 4 and the beat is 4 tiles per minute, then we know that this extra ability will trigger exactly once every minute. And then set the start sequence when receiving from to channel 18, which is when our first phase is completed, remember? Then apply the same options, but channel 19 to the next sequencer, 20 for the third one, and for the last one we're going to do something slightly different, as this is the sequencer that will activate when we're done with the boss. So leave the looping to none and set the BPM to 8. Because then we can throw down some triggers here to have like an ending monologue or something like that. Or activate more particles or explosions or whatever you want to happen when the boss fight ends. Now before we go on, let's set up billboards to remember our channels. And this is the perfect place as it's outside of our map and easy to check what channels we're using. Add one to the first one saying channel 18 left arm phase 1. Then another one on the second sequencer saying channel 19 right arm phase 2. Third billboard on the third sequencer saying channel 20 legs phase 3. And then last billboard on the last sequencer saying channel 21 head final phase. This is just to make sure we don't get confused later with what free channels we have. And with that, we now know that our next free channel is channel 22. So back to our first sequencer here. And throw down a trigger at the very beginning. Then scroll all the way down and set the when triggered transmit on to channel 22. So what will happen? After our first arm is destroyed, this music sequencer will start and go on an infinite loop. It will start running and will hit this trigger, and then just continue running and take exactly 1 minute until it gets to the end and therefore restarts. Now for demo, I'm not going to implement all phase abilities, as it's up to you guys to invent your own. But for demo, to see if it works, I am going to set up one sentry right here next to my map that doesn't spawn on game start, but spawns when receiving from channel 22. Let's start and see. So pick up a weapon, start shooting the arm, and as soon as we destroy it, we get our phase 2 message. And then after a couple of seconds, our sentry shows up. Now while we're in testing mode, let me show you the issues that we still have. I'm on phase 2 now, but as you can see, I can also shoot the head or the legs, and that's something we need to fix. So back to editing mode. But before we do that, we're going to set the health of our actual phases. So fly to our objective devices and change the health to how long you want the boss fight to take. I suggest not going over 5000 because there are no health bars on invisible object devices, sadly enough. So if you put it higher than that, people might start getting confused like why isn't this getting destroyed? I've been shooting it for so long. So anyway, do this for each phase, you can set it as you want. And now for the magic. Leave the first hand as is, because that's our first phase that starts at the beginning. But go to your second phase, in our case the right hand, and copy your objective device, copy not cut, and resize it in all directions twice, so that it's slightly bigger than your original objective device, and completely covers it, blocking it inside. You see where I'm going with this? Blocking it inside. Now configure this outer objective device as follows. Damage to invulnerable. Change the display damage numbers to off. Now remove the when destroyed transmit on channel, but instead set the destroy when receiving from to channel 18. So let me start the game and explain. We're on phase 1. we can damage the left arm, but if we now try to shoot the objective device on the right arm, the bullets just get caught by the outer objective device that is slightly bigger than the other one. Since it's invulnerable, there's no way that the bullets can actually reach the inner one and destroy it or damage it. And since damage numbers don't show up, players won't get confused either. Then once we destroy the first arm, it triggers on channel 18, which spawns a sentry and destroys the arm with our explosive device, but it also destroys this invulnerable objective device that is outside, exposing the inner one. Now repeat this process for the legs, exposing it on channel 19, and the same for the head, exposing it on 20. And we're all done? Genius, right? We're almost done now. Let's just first clean up our spawn here. I'm going to set up the spawn pad in a separate room here, but you most likely already have like a preceding adventure map. And I'm going to set it up right next to it in a closed off room. Now I'm going to throw down another perception trigger inside the boss room. That can only trigger once. We're also going to make it invisible just to make it cleaner. Now since I only implemented one extra like phase ability, which was a sentry, the next free channel that I have is 23. But for you guys that will probably be a higher number. So let me just set it to 30 to like simulate I actually went through the effort of setting up all the other extra phase abilities. Then for the last time, fly down to your boss fight mechanics and set up a new sequencer. Lower the BPM to about 20 and set the start sequence to our channel 30 that we just said our perception trigger will hit. Now throw down a trigger in the first tile, the second one, and the last one. The first one will bind to 31 and add an HUD device that will trigger on the same channel that is going to start the boss introduction monologue. Let's say something like, "My name's Jonny and I'm awesome." Now our second trigger here in the sequencer to 32 and an HUD device saying subscribe and hit that like button. And then this last trigger will set that it needs to trigger channel 1. And what's channel 1 again? Well, let's go and see. It's our abilities RNG device that will then go on an endless loop of re-triggering all the abilities. Now lastly, to indicate where the player has to shoot, grab a beacon gallery from the gallery's creative inventory and throw it down just right here outside of your map. Now choose a color of an arrow you like and copy it over to your boss. Set the enabled during phase to pre-game only. Why? Because if you put it to none, it also disappears in editing mode, making it a lot harder to position it. An extra little tip there for you. And that's the same for particles, so always set them to pre-game only so that you can see exactly where to position them. And then for our first arrow, we're going to set the enable when receiving from channel 32, which is a channel that gets called on the last part of our introduction monologue we just finished setting up. And then a disable when receiving from to channel 18, which is when our first phase ends. Now copy it and paste it right next to it. But change the enable when receiving from to channel 18, so again, when our first phase ends and our second one starts, and the disable when receiving from channel 19. Then copy it again and change it to enable on 19, disable on 20, and one more time for the head, which starts on channel 20 and ends on 21. And then go and paste your arrows inside the objective devices we set up earlier. Well, actually, to be sure they work correctly, I suggest first placing them right next to it, and then run through your entire boss fight. If everything shows up correctly, then place the arrows inside, because once pasted inside, it's hard to move them afterwards. And now for our very last cleanup, fly to our main abilities RNG device and set the disable when receiving from to channel 21, which is the channel that gets called when the last phase has been completed. With that, we ensure that the boss fight stops once the head is destroyed. And do the same with our extra abilities sequencer right here next to it as well, to make sure that these stop as well. Just bind the stop when receiving from to channel 21. And that's it, guys, you've completed your own custom boss fight. I know this mini-series has been the most complicated thing we've done so far, and after this I'm going to refocus a little bit on some basic tutorials and some basic tips, but I really hope that me explaining it step by step helps you understand how everything works. Now I'm going to leave you guys here with me fighting Jonny once to show how everything works. If you've made it this far into the video, then thank you so much for sticking around. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and hit that little bell, and I'll see you guys soon.